reflections from my honors and other groups. I appreciate that. I think you guys don't understand that that kind of feedback is very important for us. If you didn't do the evaluation in first semester, please do it in second semester. It's about us learning. But yeah, it was a really, really good evaluation for me. I think what was quite interesting though is how much more I get rated online than I do in the face-to-face classes. It's a variation of 12%, which is no 14% actually, no for 12%. So clearly I'm doing something right online and something not right with the other bits. Right, let's look at where we are. I did share this article because I thought this was pretty cool when I found it in terms of where we are in the world. Did anyone get a chance to read this? I know that it's never perfect to try and have a glance at it beforehand. Anyone have a look at this? Everyone's very quiet. Nathan, any comments about that, Nathan?
Doc, I thought it was quite an interesting article overall, and just sort of highlighted the importance, I suppose, of innovation within industry, just in general. Yeah, so that was
Yeah,
very interesting.
it's interesting, and it's also how much we can learn from that. I think the one thing we know about the textbook is that the textbook is dated and that there is a major update in terms of the textbook for next year. We are still using the same authors. I think these authors are very practical in terms of telling us what the approach is. It's also going to be interesting to see what the new textbook says around AI and AI innovating. I don't think we're at that point yet. I think the Gen AI is not going to do that, but the evolution is significant. What I thought was important in terms of this competitive edge is that at the top of the pile is innovation, but all of these are integrated. I think if you look from right there to there, it ultimately is about innovation. Without talent, you don't innovate. Without being able to build what you've created in innovation, you don't have anything to present that is worth it to your customers. I found this article very interesting, and I'm planning on using it next year for one of the assessments. And then just other bits and pieces, the need to measure your innovation, and then this kind of things that where innovation is at in terms of percentages and how we focus on it year to year. It ties in perfectly with the model that we've adopted here. And for me, these are the kinds of articles that when you work in an organization that's world class, you would hope that they emulate that. So to try and bring a bit of that into your organization and where you work, it's interesting when we look at. So I know where I finished, and I thought I'd put us exactly where we had finished. Goodness me, Pelser. So we had finished there last time, and then just the entire process. So I think we've learned from innovation that it is a continuous process. It is a staged process with integrated steps in those stages. And it's about consciously thinking about what can we do next? Where can we push the next boundary? And I think for me, it is not something that happens just because. It's not something you stumble over in the dark. I think it is a conscious thought process supported by management and leaders and an organizational culture that pushes you to think outside the box. So, in terms of the questions that you need to ask as an audit mechanism for your organization, is the first one: do we search as well as we could? Are we constantly looking at the right places to come up with new ideas that can act as an innovation? If you had to ask that question about your organization, what would it be? Because we know that to be competitive, at the top of the list of things that makes you competitive is the ability to innovate. And remember, we also spoke about the notion of innovate or evaporate. Whose companies search really well? I try and push myself. I've tried extra things this year. I mean, there's another thing that I recently did that I still have to preview before I share it with my students. But it's not just an aside. It is a conscious effort all the time. And then, secondly, when we have something that will push the boundaries, how well do we do to get those elements in place that can make this innovation happen? And I think a lot of organizations don't get that right. I think it's easy to come up with the idea. It is difficult to take that idea and get the resources and those other bits and pieces, building blocks in place to make it work. And then lastly, how well do we implement? Because the only time you get any benefit from any innovation is when it appears on a shelf, or it appears as a product or a service somewhere, or it appears within your production line as a way of becoming more efficient. I think these are the kinds of things that you need to ask. On Thursday, and I don't know if anyone is going to that, I've been invited to do an alumni address in Westville, and I stole some of your, sorry, research topics to show, what you guys believe are the main issues in the world. And the one thing that stood out about your research topics is that it really addresses those kinds of questions. I think a lot of you are being incredibly innovative in terms of the kind of research projects that you've adopted. A lot of innovations can actually come from your research projects. Any comments about that as a general comment? Think about your own title. Surely your own title is ultimately about innovation. If you think of your title, it's about pushing boundaries. It is about coming up with new ideas. It's about changing processes. It is making recommendations in terms of the entire system that we're part of. Georgia Jade, yours is absolutely 100%. I mean, the idea of Generation Glass to avoid the Gen Z fiasco of accommodating a new generation. So for me, I quite like this idea. If you think very carefully, guys, all of your topics are really about innovation. And I've looked at the entire list. I can't show the group on Thursday the entire list. I've made a couple of selected ones, but it is about innovation. And then just in terms of the other questions, the first one is, how do we capture value? How do we turn this initial idea, this initial investment into something that benefits the organization? The one thing that I need to say at this point in time is that I wrote this speech for Thursday on a really gloomy day, and it was about South Africa and the world, and I became incredibly depressed. And yeah, and then I finished it today and felt a little bit more positive when I spoke about some of the innovations and the ideas and what we can do to survive. But part of this that stood out for me is this thing here, the embedded nature of where we are in the world right now. We always sit with the organization in the middle. Immediately outside the organization are those communities, and those communities essentially are embedded in society. Society is at the back, and then communities there. And what this embedded model suggests is that whatever we do here has to have benefit there, has to have benefit there, and has to have benefit there. It's a redefinition of sustainability. So, Georgia Jade, when you think of your specific topic, if we do this right, it benefits at all three levels. And I think for me, that's where this innovation thing is. That it's not about just capturing value. It is redefining what it means to capture value. And it's capturing value not just for shareholders, but for communities and for society. The second one is also learning from those processes. At the end of the year, after your research, the one thing I would love you to do is sit and reflect on what you've achieved, but in particular, ask the question, what would I do different next time? Because part of this kind of learning and improving about certain elements in any process is the reflexive exercise, is the reflective exercise. I do it every year, guys. So this year I'll get together with the supervisors and we'll figure out what worked, what didn't work, what do we need to change, what do we need to update. And I think you should do the same thing. And then to make sure that you go and register these as patents, you go and generate, you try and make them sustainable in terms of your research. And I'm so sorry to be talking about your research because I'm quite excited about the stuff that I'm seeing, is that you have to try and turn this into articles, guys. There are a lot of you that hopefully will get selected at the e-symposium, and it's part of this sustainability thing. It's part of turning it into articles. Can I just see with a show of hands who applied to the e-symposium to have their projects presented at the e-symposium? I know, Georgia, you did. Nadia, you did. Okay. Anyone else apply? I hope you didn't miss and missed out on the e-symposium. I thought I'd have a lot more hands there. And then, yeah, how do we bring this into our feedback loop next time around? And it's all of the reflection that takes place here, guys. Right, let's move on to this. So I think the one thing we know about innovation is that context matters. Different sectors will have different approaches. If you're an organization that mass produces, you're going to try and be about efficiency. If you're a science intensive industry, you're going to try and push the boundary, the kind of right brain thinking that we see in Silicon Valley. But also, we know that small firms innovate better than big firms. Why is that the case? Why do small firms generally innovate better than big firms? Give me examples of companies that were started in a garage. And it's cliched to say that. Go for it, Nadia.
Well, I know oftentimes smaller companies have to innovate because they don't have that brand reputation and presence to speak for themselves yet.
Absolutely, because they've got to disrupt the industry for people to take notice. They can't go and repeat what has already been done. You're not going to survive. So for these smaller organizations, it's often about disruption. And large organizations get smacked by disruption because they're too cumbersome to actually innovate. Which companies were started in a garage? Guys are very quiet tonight. Apple was started in the garage, absolutely. Better communication. I mean, it's real communication because it's about what we do. Amazon, Facebook in a dorm, yeah, absolutely. Microsoft, Disney. I mean, it's disturbing the companies that were started in the garage, and it's become a bit of a cliche for these big behemoths to start off in someone's garage. The most famous one is the Apple one. And I think I've showed you guys the first Apple that was built. Not his garage, it was his parents' garage. But um, I hope it's going to show it to us. But I think it's this one. Yeah, it was that. I mean, that's blimmin' impressive. I don't care who you are. That to me is impressive. I mean, in a garage, and it is a cliche. I mean, Mark Shuttleworth started his company in his parents' garage as well. So we see these small companies start in garages because they are unencumbered by policies and procedures and red tape, guys. Red tape, a real issue. Then you have national systems of innovation. Which countries actively promote innovation from a national perspective? And there are a couple of those that sit around the Pacific Rim. Countries that actively promote innovation, where government is about innovation. And those countries that sit on the Pacific Rim, China, India, absolutely. Think of smaller countries. There are two that stand out for me. Three maybe, but Japan, absolutely. Hong Kong, Singapore, and South Korea. You see what South Korea has brought the world. You go and look what Hong Kong and Singapore have brought the world. These are governments that realize that we don't have significant natural resources. The resource we have is our collective brain power. So, as a government, we are there to promote innovation. We are there to promote the idea of disruption. We have education systems that allow people to question every day whether what we're doing is the right thing to do. Guys, and then just different life cycles. I mean, give me examples of industries that have been revitalized because of innovation. There are a couple of those. I mean, it's not really my scene, but industries that have been revitalized because of innovation. I mean, there's one that stands out. Cars, absolutely, yeah. There's one specific industry that, if you're a music lover, yeah, there it is, Mondley. I mean, the return of vinyl, guys, the return of vinyl. Who would have thought that when my wife donated all my vinyl records to the SPCA, that there goes a small fortune, that it went for a good cause. Has anyone adopted vinyl, or have you not? I've not gone back to vinyl, but vinyl has made a massive comeback, guys. Anyone into vinyl? Well, you can still get vinyl. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, so music has gone, but you still buy vinyl online. I see Amazon has. Um, oh, it's so true, boy. You should be buying secondhand. You should be buying secondhand. I think that the two records, and it also are Mondley, fantastic, fantastic. I mean, we donated ours when we moved to CDs, so I still have tons of CDs, but CDs don't have soul. Vinyl have soul. But I think that the two most valuable records my wife gave away, and it's also an indication of what a sad nerd I am, is the two records of rugby matches from 1960 in the 60s. And it's just, I wish I had those two records still. Guys, and then just how new is it? Are we pushing the boundaries? Are we disrupting? Or is it just continuous improvement? And then also, what do regulators do? What do they do to facilitate? What do they do to essentially prompt us? New legislation, for example, in the natural environment. Guys, and then just why small firms do well. And you can see the stuff. It's literally what you guys have said. It's how quickly things get done, and it's informal. You don't have that number of red tape, but obviously you have the limitations as well. But for me, it's this. Imagine the moment Mark Shuttleworth finally got his online payment system to work and to register. I mean, he ran out into the garden and screamed, apparently around midnight, about his success. And I think it's that kind of excitement that you don't get in large organizations. It's a bit ho-hum in large organizations. Yeah, and then just where we are now, I think this is where we are now. The idea of systems integration, networking, making sure that we speak to our customers, making sure that we even speak to our competitors, that we speak to suppliers who will provide us with the inputs into our own innovations, because we have to, whatever the idea is, ultimately build it with components from elsewhere. And then just with partial models, if you don't have the full model, and you can have a glance at that. I'm not going to go through all of those. I think it's a way of isolating innovation. It becomes the purview of, as they say here, guys in white coats. And that's why Google is so wonderful, where every single person, irrespective of where you work, have innovation targets. We don't just expect the research and development or a university to do your innovation. It happens absolutely everywhere. And then just lastly, we've done this before, dynamic capability. Remember, resources, what we own. Capabilities allow us to maximize what we can get out of the resources. And then dynamic capabilities are those that allow us to constantly reinvent ourselves in order to be relevant. I think we've used the examples of movie stars. We've used the examples of pop of musicians who have reinvented themselves multiple times. And I think it's the same with organizations. I think we also looked at what the oldest organizations were. Right. So this is where I wanted to be. We did do this in prep for the assignment. I think everyone will remember that. So we can go through each of these. So do I need to go through this again, considering I did it for the assignment in detail? Let me go through it again. So the stuff that prompt innovations. The first one, shocks to the system. And it is where there is a change in the world that prompts us to innovate. What examples do we associate with the shock to the system? There's one that stands out for me from 2020. Okay. And the mRNA technology. The mRNA technology. I mean, absolutely, it had to happen. Those vaccines, mRNA technology, and the consequence of what it meant is how the basis of that technology will allow us in future to again vaccinate and create new vaccines against new crises similar to COVID. Because remember, this COVID is just one virus. Guys, we will have many more because of global warming, because of ice caps melting, and because of exposing pathogens, because of deforestation, we will have many more similar viruses to that of COVID. And the mRNA technology is designed to identify the DNA and then mitigate against the DNA of the actual virus. That was a big shock to the system. I don't know if I've asked who had one vaccine. We asked who had no vaccines. Anyone have zero vaccines? Who had one vaccine? Who had two vaccines? There should be a lot of hands now. Two, Georgia Jade. Nianta. Neil also two. Monley also two. Okay. I'll let you had two in Tatisi. Very cool. I'll let you guess how many I had. I'll type it in so I don't cheat when you guess. I'm pretty sure I might have told you because of my age, obviously. And because the vaccine didn't affect me, it actually gave me an energy boost. It was like drinking Red Bull, to be honest with you. I was vaccinated 5 different times. I had the initial, the booster, and three more. I don't know why. Pathetic. Yeah. Well, and when you meet me, it explains away the third arm. It does explain the third arm under my left arm. So I was vaccinated 5 times, guys. Didn't make me ill, guys. Goodness me, it was like an energy drink in my blood system. Yeah, lots of people got ill from it. I certainly didn't. Yeah, that was pathetic. I just went every time they told me. Every 6 months I went, so I ended up with 5. Pathetic. Guys, and then accidents. Yeah, I mean, something happens, new, surprising things. Give me examples of wonderful accidents that have changed the world. And there are lots. There are lots. Wonderful accidents. Antibiotics, of course, penicillin, 100%. I mean, pure fluke. Yeah. Other pleasant accidents. Post-it notes. Post-it notes. I don't know whether people still use post-it notes. Play-Doh, 100%, Georgia Jade. Do people still use post-it notes now that you've moved to mostly a paperless office? Can't remember when last I had printed something out. My wife printed something out because we're redoing our kitchen and she did the design. And then, yeah, Viagra. They were researching heart medicine, and yeah, it was a surprising accident. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of those guys, and then watching others, learning from others, benchmarking. Oh yeah, no, absolutely, boy. Yeah, I use post-it notes when I develop. So I stick the post-it notes in the different pages so that I know that when I've put a question down, where the page is and where the page to refer to. And yeah, you have to use post-it notes as per my instruction. But it's something that I can't imagine when it started, when we had a paper-driven society, how popular it was back then. Guys, watching others, watching one area and copying and using it somewhere else. I mean, what is an interesting aside is that they found that lithium, um, obviously, which is an antidepressant, lithium, and oh my goodness, what is the disease? Wonder if they know it's not that. Lithium and Alzheimer's. They had a pleasant surprise that yeah, lithium essentially um, can be used to fight Alzheimer's. If you read that, yeah, um, it's a wonderful moving it from one area to another. And maybe it doesn't apply here perfectly and it applies in under one of the other categories better. I was very surprised by this one. So I think everyone has seen what's happened to Bruce Willis. Now, he's not got Alzheimer's, he's got dementia. But it is an interesting aside. I mean, lithium was one of the original antidepressants, and I always thought wasn't very good for you, but can now be used as a way of mitigating, hopefully, against Alzheimer's. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. When you get to my age, these are the things you get excited about, guys. And then yeah, and maybe innovation uses across stages. So Blu-ray has been used from everything from gaming right through to your Blu-ray players. I don't even think people use Blu-ray players anymore. Who still has their Blu-ray discs? Not the gaming discs, the Blu-ray discs for their DVD players. Sadly, I do, but I can't remember when I last switched my. Yeah, I can't remember when last I used a Blu-ray player. Oh no, I lie. We use one every December. We have a tradition in this house where we watch this every December. Oh my gosh, with Tim Allen. So yeah, Monley, Monley. Oh, very cool, Neil. Geez, today, I mean, you're the coolest oak on the block, Monley VHS. I think there's still a place for VHS players in the world. Who has seen the Santa Claus, guys? So Hayden, who now is 19, has seen the Santa Claus movie 19 times. My oldest son has seen the Santa Claus movie 29 times. It's a tradition that we do every Christmas Eve. You don't have a choice. You have to watch the Santa Claus movie. Otherwise, you don't get Christmas presents. Loved the Santa Claus. Loved the Santa Claus. It's so bad that we know every word that is spoken. And I still laugh at the same old jokes, which is also just an indication how pathetic I am. Oh, guys, and then just a regulation, and in particular in terms of environmental regulation. There have been a lot of changes as a consequence of environmental regulation, including in the motor industry. The need to reduce carbons and the move, and again, I'm very surprised by it, but it does appear that electric is the future. It really appears that electric is the future for vehicles. Yeah, and then advertising, speaking to customers, finding out what they want, and then that sort of aha moment. I don't know where the Please Call Me fits into that. I think the way that the Please Call Me has been handled is an indication of how we don't understand the value of innovation in this country. Any comments about the Please Call Me and the way that it has unfolded? Any comments about the Please Call Me? It's the dirty washing that's been hanged out because of that. Just give the kiddies money. As a wonderful innovation. You've made billions from it. Yeah, I have a real issue with that one. Knowledge push, and guys, yeah, pushing the frontiers of knowledge forward. And AI certainly is now going to play a significant role. Design drive. I mean, if you think of what LED lights did to the design of vehicles. The moment LED lights were discovered, think of how cars have changed in terms of the way that they built, how refined they started to look, how much better they are at wind resistance and aerodynamics, etc. And that's just simply because of LEDs. I mean, if you think of how thin most of the new vehicles and the LED lights are. And then, yeah, need pull again, guys. We're so many where we had to innovate because the world has changed and we needed to do it quickly. Users and innovators, I would imagine 100% this is where Please Call Me would fall into it. And then looking at different futures, looking at alternatives into the future. I think the most significant one there is Elon Musk taking us into Mars, or taking people to Mars. The other one is this thing. I don't know if you guys have seen it from, I hope I didn't do an assignment on it. Neuralink, where there's a brain implant specifically designed to deal also with Alzheimer's and dementia, and yeah, just changing the abilities of people. Um, yeah. Anyone seen any readings on Neuralink? I don't know if I did the assignment question on it this year or whether it was last year's assignment question. It's brain implants that changes your life. Please have a glance at that, guys. Right. So let's look at some of the detail. So the first one, knowledge push. This is because of scientific research. So there are two ways of doing this, guys. The first one is to outsource your research to a university. A lot of companies do that, where they'll fund an entire department at a university where your postgraduate students would do their innovation. Or it's your research and development. It's the scientists, it's the engineers who on a daily basis try and question where can we take technology. Need pull, I think this is where there is a desperate need. And if we don't create something very rapidly, we are going to be in trouble. Again, I suppose we can argue that the mRNA technology falls into this category as well. And then when we look at how much we have in terms of products, what is quite interesting is that the largest percentage there would be those continuous improvements. And you can see the smaller percentage, new products to the world. However, that is dated. This textbook is from 2014. That picture is from 1997. I can tell you now that it doesn't look like that anymore. That is seriously dated. And then just making procedures better. Yeah, so when we think of this, it is about efficiency. It is about improving the way we create value inside an organization. What does TQM stand for? What does it mean? How does TQM work? Has anyone ever been trained in TQM? Surely you guys know what TQM is. Quality management? Yeah, total quality management, where essentially everyone is responsible for their own quality and everyone has a customer, whether that customer is internal or external. I'm surprised that you guys aren't more aware of TQM. Business process reengineering is another one. Yeah, I don't know why we include it in textbooks because on the face of it, it's a wonderful idea, but when it's been implemented, it's never rendered the successes, and it has a success rate of under 30%. So traditional organizations are built according to BPR, according to silos. So marketing is separate from finance, finance is separate from, oh, I've really, I'm trying to write with a mouse, from marketing. Marketing is separate from ops. So in organizations, we exist in these silos. So what we do is every time we do work, we serve and we try and promote our work within our own department. Business process reengineering asks the question, when I started this organization, should I have had the technology that I have available right now? What would my structure look like? And essentially, it is that idea of creating the so-called lateral organization, where you have the boundaryless organization, where you take away the boundaries between those silos. And then lean thinking. Yeah. Lean thinking. Where did lean thinking originate, guys? You should know this. Famous car company. Yeah. If you ever get a chance, worth watching and having a read of some of these. Um, just about efficiency. Oh, my goodness me. Well worth the read. In particular, if you're in a production type environment, absolutely well worth the read. Right. And then the idea of working at the edge, the idea of disruptive innovation. Give me examples of innovations that have disrupted your life, forcing you into new products, using into new ways of doing things. Give me examples of innovations that have disrupted your existence, your comfort zone, forcing you to adopt new things. Guys, can I tell you what a big disruptor is? Uh, I'm not even going to comment on that, but yeah, it's a good one, Georgia. Yeah, it's a good one. I think we're sitting in a disruptor, guys. Online learning. You know, I was taught to stand in front of a class and play out a role in class. We don't see each other face to face, and I pray for every day that you guys don't fall asleep and that my lectures aren't boring. So, working at the edge, what else has disrupted your life? Online banking. Surely online banking would have been a disruptor. Online banking would have been a disruptor. Other areas where you've had disruptors, think of apps, guys. Think of apps and how they've changed your life. Yeah. Travel in what way, Neil? TikTok. Yeah, TikTok is not a good disruptor, but yeah, it's a disruptor. It's a distractor. Book your own flights. You can go to Airbnbs. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Can book in online. You can book in online. I mean, it's a wonderful and positive disruptor, and you have to embrace it. And then obviously Airbnb and booking.com and those kinds of places as well. Kira, is the internet. I mean, how has the internet disrupted what we do? I mean, I used to go into a library and look for books, and now I sit in class and I find information sitting at my desk and share it with students who are sitting across the country. I mean, some of them not even in the country. I've got people outside the country. I mean, a massive disruptor. Who did they undergrad with us? Who did they undergrad with us from here online? Did you do it online or face to face, Georgia J? Who did their undergrads online, Georgia J? Did you ever have Cheryl as an economics or finance lecturer? Nyanta, Cheryl Morford, did you ever have her as a lecturer? No. Let me tell you, online disrupted that poor woman because she was technologically illiterate and she was thrown into a shark tank and had to learn. Um, but you know who she is. I mean, she's one of the best finance and economics lecturers around. But I've never seen anyone wobble from a new technology the way she did. So I think there are lots of these, and these are often those early adopters, those individuals. Well, if you think of writing a research paper, when I needed to, in my end of my first degree, do my research project, I wanted to add information in the middle. And I used, I typed, and you then take out pages in the middle and you retype so you can put the extra information in and you try and blend it. It is, it's not just copy and paste now into a new area. It's vastly different. Vastly different. This is better, though. Can I just say this is better? Guys, and then crisis innovation. Yeah, the COVID vaccine certainly is one of those. Yeah, I used to use Tifix. And then distribution customization. Where have we seen changes in that? Yeah. Soon we'll have stuff delivered by Soon we'll have stuff delivered by drones, guys. Did I show you the video of the drone delivery from Walmart? Checkers, absolutely. Let me see if I can. Yeah, this is it. I'll just share it. It lags too much trying to do this. Hold on. So there's another one, guys, where they show you where it's delivered with a parachute. Um, wonderful, wonderful. Um, Let me just get into my YouTube. Please tell me I've got the right one. Yeah, I think it's this one. I I don't know how where's your delivery? Sorry, have a glance at that. Any comments before before I say anything about that? Ronly, you work for Walmart. Very impressive, but actually, I know that actually. I know that. Any comments? What will you do when your pistachios are dropped off in your front garden? Buy a drone? I mean, obviously, we need to change our airspace laws, but who's looking forward to that day, guys? Who's looking forward to that day where a drone arrives and drops your medicine? Or to also just say, and I have shared this before, in Rwanda, drone deliveries of medicines have taken place for a long time to remote areas in Rwanda. Um, Distribution, and then obviously 60/60 part of that. The way we build, I mean, Dell is the best example where you can spec your computer, they'll build it and they'll personalize it for you. Mass customization, where you can build things on the same production line and have different features depending on what the customer ordered. Wonderful design where you actually allow the customer to tell you in your vehicle whether they want leather, what color the leather, what they want as the radio, what they want as anything else that they can spec. And then just from others, yeah, we've spoken about reverse engineering and benchmarking against the opposition. Guys, in this, yeah, sometimes having these crossovers where you innovate in one area and it affects everywhere. For me, Bluetooth, I mean, if you think how many areas of your life you use Bluetooth, I mean, it's significant. So we see these kind of crossover innovations everywhere. And then regulation, introduction of laws. Again, environmental laws have driven a lot from an innovation perspective. And then just looking into the future, and you've seen all of these. I'm not going to discuss each of those. The design-driven information, where essentially we start having new innovations built into products, creating needs and getting customers to actually have needs that they didn't know they had previously. And then just, yeah, the different areas. And there's wonderful accidents, guys, those wonderful accidents. The post-it note guy was building super glue that would stick forever, and it became a reattachable glue. Right. That is us finished with Learning Unit 2. These learning units are very, very long. Any questions, any comments? You guys were very quiet today, so clearly I'm doing something wrong. Thank you so much for attending. Please, please, please have a good week. Do I see you guys tomorrow night for research? I'm sure I do. I can't recall. I'm pretty sure that I see you for research. I'll see what my diary says. Thank you so much for attending. Yeah, the class is empty tonight, guys. Yeah, I think so too. Everyone's buggered, Kira. Please take care. Have a good week ahead. Cheers, all.